All right, pivoting back to my cinephilia, let me talk about a movie that I saw yesterday called Ted K. Ted K is a depiction of Ted Kaczynski. It's, I guess, what you might call a biopic, although it's not. It's not a typical biopic. I think I've spoken before about the biopic as a genre and how the biopic is almost always um, inherently second rate because it's something. Well, the typical biopic is extraordinarily formulaic, almost always in 98 99% of cases. You have somebody uh, who's famous for one reason or another. Either he or she is a star, or he or she is notorious, or an athlete, or some anyway, some famous or infamous character who actually existed, and you see this person's rise, and then at some point they get drunk on their own power, and they alienate everybody around them, and maybe they become a drug addict, uh, and then they fall from grace and they plummet, and lose everything, and then they have and then it ends with their comeback. Um, they eventually get it back together again, realize the error of their ways, and emerge uh, wiser and better for it. Um, that seems to be the typical biopic uh, arc, if you will. I know that's kind of an annoying word, but it's the typical pattern of the plot that you find in the biopic. There are exceptions to this, however, and Ted K is definitely an exception to the point where I don't even know if I would call it a biopic. Um, Raging Bull, Scorsese's Raging Bull, about the boxer Jake LaMotta is also an exception to this rule. Just because it doesn't really follow any of the patterns that I just laid forth, and it kind of ends with him, just on Skid Row, fat and old and having lost everything. Uh, you know, doing the "I could have been a contender" speech that Marlon Brando originally delivered in some other movie. Um, so, going about as a failed stand-up comedian. So Ted K though is a little bit is even more atypical than Raging Bull as far as biopics go, because you don't really see the full scope of his life. It's uh, just a movie that plants you right down uh, to the Ted who existed in the mid '80s to the mid '90s, I suppose, when he was living in his shed in the woods in Montana, and secretly constructing homemade bombs and sending them off to various people that he despised. Uh, and also, we see, it's not like his whole philosophy is ignored at all. Um, the entire movie, in fact, is so much from his point of view. It's like except for maybe a scene or two here or there. Which, if this did happen, it was a mistake, in my point of view, because really this was supposed to be a movie where everything, wherever Ted is, that's where we are. Wherever Ted goes, that's what we see. And so we're forced into this kind of identification with him, and even a kind of sympathy with him, um, that one wouldn't necessarily have otherwise. Now, I know that it's because it's a very interesting thing on the dissident right right now, and maybe it's been a new thing over the last 3 or 4 years or so, where people on the dissident right have really taken Ted Kaczynski on as a as somebody that they root for, as a guy that they dig, as somebody who's all right with them. And it's a little bit weird because there I don't know how much Ted Kaczynski actually shared dissident right philosophy or ideology. He certainly wasn't he wasn't interested in race. The only based thing that that we can see about Kaczynski from the movie is that he he held women in contempt. He also lusted after them, and was an incel before there was a name for incels. But there's a scene where he works odd jobs here and there, and the scenery is beautiful, by the way. Montana, where it's set. Supposedly they shot at around the exact same location where the real Ted Kaczynski was actually living during all that time. There's one scene where he's doing an odd job, and a female supervisor tells him he's not doing something right, and he immediately smarts off to her and says, I don't take advice from a woman. Tell your husband to talk to me," or something like that, and gets immediately fired, which was kind of funny. Um, but the whole I don't know, anti-industrialism, anti-technology stance of Kaczynski's seems to me, you know, I don't know. It seems like rather tenuous. Like, where do you, if you're anti-technology, um, he famously, cited the fourth industrial revolution and said that it has been a disaster for mankind. Um, but the thing is, everything is technology. Like Ted uses this typewriter to type of his manifesto. And one of the things that we see him do when he goes to a big city to secretly wreak havoc and destruction, what is he visits this computer store, and one of the clerks there shows him how, look, this is a new thing. At that time, this was when laptops were sort of just being invented, just coming around, and it was like this big deal that you could have the word processor where if you made a mistake, you could just go back and delete it. And so this guy shows Ted this device, this word processor device. I guess it wasn't even a laptop; it was just a computer, but with a keyboard where you could you didn't have to go XXXXX over, or used liquid paper to cover your error. And the clerk was just very innocently saying, "Look, isn't this neat? I mean, this could be really helpful. If you're a writer, uh, this will really help you out." And Ted, of course, hates it. He hates it because it represents um, this fourth industrial revolution, where at this point, technology has taken over, and has taken on almost a will of its own, and mankind is enslaved to technology. And so, so he ends up, uh, planting a bomb in what he thinks is the boss of this computer store's, uh, you know, in his car, and ends up supposedly severely injuring this man. I went and read about read about this incident later, and this is the point where he's got that silly disguise, with the curly hair, and the mustache, where he looks kind of vaguely gay, and he's got the hood up, um, and it doesn't look anything like how he really looks, but it's him doing a disguise, and and somebody sees him walking away from the scene, and so that's why that picture of the unit becomes the picture of the Unabomber. So it's all kind of funny. It's too bad that this guy got, this guy just who was just running a computer store got severely injured, um, because of the bomb that Ted planted. I can more understand sending. I don't condone it. Let me make that clear. But I could understand sending things, if you want to blow people up, send it to somebody who's really powerful and absolutely nefarious, and is doing things that are actively leading to the enslavement of mankind. And it's not like in our age, with the advent of smart technology and all of that. I mean, you could say that Kaczynski was pretty prophetic in a lot of ways, and I don't uh, I don't condone his terrorism, but hats off to him as far as that goes. But I don't see why owning a word processor would, where you can delete an error. I don't see why that's such a such a terrible thing. Because again, it's kind of like with the Amish. Or these other these Amish related groups, Mennonites and such. They decided we're going to stop we're going to use the technology that was current in, say, 1850, and after 1850, we're going to shun everything that came after that. It seems arbitrary because, I mean, they're using horses and buggies. I mean, there was a time when horses and buggies didn't exist. Ted in the movie is using, just like in real life, he's using a typewriter to type out his manifesto and so forth. But there was a time when typewriters didn't exist. So why? What at what point do you shun technology? It just does seem arbitrary, except for the fact that, as we know today, smart technology can be a tool to enslave us. I mean, I can definitely see that happening now. The weird thing was that wasn't happening, or it was only, it was just in its infancy back in the 80s and the 90s, when Ted was going about doing his thing. So, as far as the performance, I don't remember the actor's name right now who plays Kaczynski, but he's he's good. He's very intense, and he's very he alternates between being just socially awkward, in a way that's kind of endearing, and just being just this maniac, who fires a rifle at helicopters because when they're flying overhead, um, uh, because he hates their presence in the forest, and he hates the fact that they're looking for oil and doing all these other kinds of things. Now, we don't see the full scope of his life, unlike, I think there was a Netflix documentary about Kaczynski that talked about his youth, talked about how he went to Harvard when he was like 15 or something like that. You know, brilliant, IQ through the roof, and how he was subjected to these like early kind of MK Ultra experiments where he got berated and insulted and humiliated. Uh, that was an interesting thing to see. That's an interesting thing to note about uh, the formation of Ted Kaczynski, how he became who he was. Although I suppose, I think he denies that actually had any influence over him. um, and finally, the movie does highlight Kaczynski as what we would today call an incel, um, somebody who's incredibly socially awkward around women. And there are a couple of quite heartbreaking scenes, powerful scenes, where he fantasizes about having a girlfriend, and she's like this sort of trad wife looking uh, woman, and she rides on his bike with him, and they're laughing together, um, and in another scene where he first sees her is when he's doing this, like he's working this odd job, or I guess he does various things here and there to scrape up some funds, just to buy some new bomb making equipment, I guess, or to, I guess, to maybe just sustain himself also. But there's some woman that he's working with at this library event where they're refiling these books, and at first he thinks that he sees this young, pretty, the very very trad looking, but also kind of sexy brunette, and then he snaps out of it and realizes it's an old lady, which I don't know whether that was true to life or not, but he goes on, and I don't know whether he actually was delusional or psychotic, or schizophrenic, in that he saw people who weren't actually there, like we see him doing in those couple of scenes. All in all, it's a slow moving movie, um, but it's very authentic feeling. I would recommend it to anyone who is interested in Kaczynski, interested in the life that he led, the, the life that he chose for himself, interested in more or less what made him tick, because we do see him get, you know, really pissed off with all of the tractors that are driving through the woods, and the airplanes flying overhead with their chemtrails coming behind them, and the polluted the water in the river getting suddenly polluted with what looks like oil or some kind of chemical thing. So obviously he was sincere in his contempt for what was happening to the earth, the the raping of the earth as he saw it. But at the same time, he admits that what he does for revenge. So it's obviously a very personal thing. Um, and I don't know, like, something in you has got to, like, some switch has got to be flipped where you just suddenly you don't care. You think it's okay to just kill people who own computer stores, and although he targeted some more bigwigs also, but I don't know. It suggests a few things about his state of mind, and obviously, a brilliant character. It's fascinating that they uh, they published his manifesto in the New York Times and the Washington Post. I mean, in a way, that's sort of like Wow. I mean, you know you've got them by the balls when you get the Lugan Press to publish your manifesto. Uh, and he's very happy about that. He's an ego driven person. He wants to be recognized. He wants to be seen, and it pleases him when he succeeds, when he has these kinds of victories. So that's Ted K. It's I think it's out in movie theaters in some places, but I watched it online. I think you could watch it on YouTube or on Amazon or other places as well. So that's my review, my analysis. Thanks for watching.